Welcome to yet another episode, Pound for Pound, another live episode, Pound for Pound Box Report, episode 373. I am your host, Michael. Joining me, the usual cast of characters, Gail from NY Fights and Communities Digital News, Daniel from 4 Boxing News, and the Inscriber. What's going on, lady and gent?
Good evening, all. I'm here from the 619, and I would rather talk boxing than my San Diego Padres. We're suffering, man. We're suffering.
Yeah, that big trade hasn't bared that many results
Those bats
so
are
far.
stone cold, my friend. Well, we'll change that up.
Yeah, I saw it. I'm like, okay, they might have got the best hitter in baseball, but they're mainly going to beat the Dodgers, not anytime soon. But anyway, let's get back to boxing. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report, live YouTube show, site/blog discussing all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it pertains to the sweet science, it will get discussed. If you want to find out all information, please go to this site page, p4pboxingreport.com. If you wish to email us, you can do with questions, thoughts, suggestions, etc., etc. You can do so. p4pboxingreport at p4pboxing, at p4pboxingreport.com. On the site itself, you'll find links to you'll find links to the sites, links for where you can find us all over the social media platforms, be it Facebook/Meta, be it the link to the YouTube channel, be it to the links to the pages on Twitter, IG, Tumblr. Also links to where you can find us all over the podcast realm. We're everywhere, pretty much everywhere now. Be it Anchor, be it Google Podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, be it Spotify, anywhere where podcast platforms are available. Also on the site, we have a donation links, 2 donation links, one to PayPal, one to Cash Me. If you have any spare change and you would like to contribute to Pound for Pound Box Report, let donation be the best nation. It will help the overall production behind the scenes. If you're checking us out live on YouTube, make sure, or listening to us at a later date on YouTube, make sure to please hit that like button. Also hit that subscribe button. Help the overall algorithm. If you're checking us out on the podcast platforms, particularly Apple Podcasts, comments are welcome. 5-star review comment will get read on the show. Last but certainly not least, link to my Beachbody on Demand page. Please check out Beachbody on Demand. We're still in summer. Whether you want to get your body right now or thinking about getting yourself together, your health and wellness goals, please check out Beachbody on Demand. Various programs for damn near any fitness goals, interest, whether it is the 645 program, whether it's the BYOB, the new Bring Your Own Body program, whether it's the P90X series 1, 2, and 3, the Insanity Asylum series. If you're into weightlifting, there's Lift 4, there's Lift More that's coming to the masses later on this summer, summer/early fall. 6 weeks of the work. If you really want to really challenge yourself, or you're looking for a boxing-based program, please check out 10 Rounds. That is a 6-week program, 5 days of workouts during the week, 3 devoted to boxing-based cardio, 2 devoted to weightlifting resistance, or at the very least, take advantage of the 14-day trial, the free 14-day trial. And that is, if you access that free 14-day trial for 2 weeks straight, you get free access to any and all programs on Beachbody on Demand. Let's get things going this evening. Recapping some of the fights that went down this past weekend. I'm going to switch it up from the docket. Gail, as those who are regulars of the show know, we usually start with ladies first and end with ladies first. So I'm going to switch things up with the docket, Gail, and let's go to Texas and kind of the return, if you will, quote unquote, of Vergil Ortiz facing Michael McKinson. These two were supposed to fight earlier this spring, spring/summer, but Ortiz had to pull out due to falling ill. They fought this weekend. This bout, to me, Gail, I put it up as kind of slow death, if you will, and that is because you can tell slowly but surely McKinson, he started off reasonably well, but once Vergil Ortiz started to focus on the body, you knew the end was coming near. He slowly but surely began to walk and chop McKinson down. Ultimately, took him out. How did you think he looked from a physical standpoint, Gail? And afterwards, the talk was about a possibility of him, the thought of him fighting, say, a Bud Crawford. Crawford was in the building doing corner work for an undercard bout, right? And Ortiz was saying that that Ortiz, who was ranked number one by the BO, I believe, said that he knows that Crawford has other plans, but if those plans are not made or plans are not made, he would love to fight Crawford. Your thoughts on Ortiz's performance against McKinson, and thoughts on how he would fare against one Bud Crawford?
Well, Ortiz admitted he'd been out of the ring too long, especially at his young age and his desire to rise up the ranks. But as it may, he dealt with the cards he had. And yeah, I think he was rusty those first couple of rounds. I think he was also anxious. He wanted to deliver. He'd heard the talk, he'd heard the gossip. He commented about it after the fight. He admitted, I didn't like it. He essentially said, I don't like people talking ish about me. And I had a chip on my shoulder over it. And he didn't listen to his corner. He also owned that and said, you think you know everything, but you don't. That's the admission of a maturing fighter. I'm very glad to hear that. And when he settled down, he did a much better job. And it was at that point a pretty classic Vergil Ortiz performance. He is not a one-hit wonder like Deontay Wilder. He is an attrition destroyer. He builds up damage. He pounds to the body. He pounds with every tool in the toolkit. And eventually, your body is going to say its version of no moss. And that's what happened to McKinson. I admit to being impressed with McKinson's effort. He would be such a dangerous fighter if he had any power at all. And he just doesn't. He has every other skill in the book. He was smart about his assault. He definitely landed punches on Ortiz, but he really couldn't hurt him. And Ortiz knew that. He still wasn't going to do anything stupid or reckless. He's very responsible with the high guard. He could improve his defense when he's coming forward. He's not always looking for incoming fire, but that may be because he thinks, I can take it. So far nobody's hurt me. So that can be a problem, especially when you start stepping up to the likes of a Bud Crawford, Errol Spence, Boots Ennis, the elite guys. But he can handle his business with just about anybody else in the division. So he did what he needed to do. He made the right call outs. Bud was there because he was working with Maurice Hooker, which was a very sorry situation, if you ask me. And Bud is fairly respectful toward Ortiz and his skill level. He acknowledges, he's very talented. And big question everybody asks Vergil is, you think you could beat Crawford? And he's got just the right answer. Just what I want to see from a guy who isn't even 25 years old. To the question, can you beat Crawford? He says, I don't know, but let me try. Well, let me see what I can do. Thank you. That is the attitude. You cannot hold back protecting the O, being reticent to go fight a challenge like a Crawford until you feel like you've got a ironclad guarantee you can win. No, take your chance. Canelo did that against Floyd Mayweather. Great fighters do that. They test themselves. Right now, I think Crawford would win. I do think Ortiz would give him a good fight, but come on. I think Bud would win, and I think the world of Vergil Ortiz. But it will teach him a lot. And if they were then to have a rematch a few years down the road, I think the formula might be a lot different. That's how a fighter develops. So Ortiz Jr. delivered a good fight for his fans and did what he needed to do. And I would absolutely not mind seeing Michael McKinson again. Good for him. He has got a lot of other opportunities in the welterweight division. He did his part.
And kudos to Michael McKinson. Did he win? No, but he put his best foot forward. He gave his A+ effort, at least to his capability, and that's all you can ask for when it comes to a fighter. Just give an honest effort. Fans will appreciate that, and give you your flowers, so to speak. There are two types of fighters who can do damage, Daniel. One is the kind of guy who can really hurt you and hurt you to a great degree with one punch. It's like say a Deontay Wilder or Monster Inoue. And then there are other fighters who break you down slowly but surely, almost to a Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., Mike McCallum effect for older fans or fans of old school fighters, quote unquote. I put Vergil Ortiz in that second category. Uh, he's more methodical, bit of a plotter, but what comes with that is a lack is at times he has slow feet. And in a proposed bout against Crawford, that is a problem. I think Spence I think that's a problem also against Spence, who has, in my opinion, faster hands and slightly more technical skill overall. I'm gonna give Ortiz a pass here because he was coming off of the illness, coming off of a long layoff. But up to this point, up until this last fight, your assessment of him and in short, do you think he's ready for the best of the best? Do you think he's ready for the likes of Crawford, Spence, Crawford, etc.? I would even throw Boots Ennis in there, who Ortiz is often compared to. Excuse me.
First, I'll tackle the fight first because it was an interesting game plan that McKinson had. Move enough, see what you can do, and see if you can destruct to see how much rust Vergil built over the fact that he had to go to this illness. And when I think almost all the three of us, we didn't really know whether he would actually be safe at welterweight as far as his health. But he slowly built it up. He slowly started breaking McKinson down. After the first round, McKinson wasn't moving that fast. And then afterwards, he started attacking the body. And one thing I saw, I didn't see this before, but I may have missed it from his early fights. But one thing I saw that makes me more confident what your second question is, he has a bit of a mean streak in him. A Bud type mean streak in him. Forgot, I think it was in the 5th or 6th round where like McKinson's movement was starting to frustrate a little bit, and you can tell sometimes how that type of movement can frustrate some fighters. Vergil started then to start really digging to the body and put a little bit more oomph on his punches around that point. But it wasn't a sloppy one. It was a methodical. It was a way just like, I'm just going to punish you now. And that's what Vergil started to do from the 5th round on until he got that knockdown in the 8th. Beautiful body shot. The 9th, nice body shot again, even though McKinson did, apparently, I think he injured his knee, from my understanding. And like he was gonna go down anyway. At that point, luckily his corner stopped the fight before any real permanent damage would have been done. But the post-fight interview tells you like how confident Vergil is. And it's a confidence that you need because to answer your second question, after his last fight against Mean Machine, I said he was ready. And yeah, facing a disease that probably would have taken you out of the division, you affected that. But taking this fight out of the equation, taking some of the rust off, yeah, he's gonna be ready. He's patient. He does have a decent high guard. Yes, he is a bit flat-footed, but at the same time, he's not sloppy with his punches. He's not a person that tries to land 3 or 4 combinations to see what sticks. He's going to focus on the jab. He's going to land to the body. And he's going to land the right hand when he sees the right opening. And because he has a little bit of a mean streak in him, the way Bud has, a fight with Bud to me would be interesting. Because imagine those mean streaks clashing together at the same time. Then you have a firefight. Then that becomes an interesting fight. With Spence, it's a little bit more difficult, probably on the technical level. But we also have to measure, like I said, the patience that Vergil has and the way Vergil fights could make it very interesting. And it would be a Texas fight. That fight would have to be in Jerry World. Boots is the one that I'll probably want to see the most because I keep pointing out the Lorme fight. If Vergil would have been the one to land that right hand from Boots before Boots was able to knock the Lorme down, I don't think Boots gets up. So that to me one's going to be an interesting one for Vergil.
Shout out to Split Bucket Podcast. I'll put some comments back on here. He says that in terms of Vergil Ortiz, he says that he's a great kid with good head movement, good head on his shoulders, promising future. He also says that McKinson walked into booze and walked out with 6,500 new fans. Excellent effort, great attitude all week. I love the dude. Indeed, Spit Bucket. McKinson, he just, again, to my earlier point, he just fought hard. He just fought hard. That's all you can ask. He was competitive all the way through. To Daniel's point, he was injured, but he didn't quit. He stayed in there until the very end, and I like that. You mentioned, Daniel, how we've mentioned Bud throughout this discussion. Gail mentioned, that Bud was working the corner of another fight. Gail, you mentioned Maurice Hooker within the discussion, and that's who Bud was in the corner of, the one aforementioned Maurice Hooker. I'm going to you on this one, Daniel. He fought on the undercard, fought Blair Cobbs. And if you are a Maurice Hooker fan, I think there are major cause for concern here. He came in overweight, and he didn't look good in the fight at all. Blair Cobbs, keep in mind, everyone, is coming off of a stoppage loss, and yet he pretty much had his way with Hooker for 2/3 of this fight, at the very least, if not the entire contest. He ends up winning by decision. He seemed not to listen to his corner. He didn't listen to his corner at all, even though Crawford and Bomac was giving him excellent advice. He just seemed to be a guy who mentally checked out. I'm looking at this, and my assessment is afterwards that if this is the best that he can do, he ought to hang up the gloves. Do you agree?
This is the one where I have to give Hooker a pass, because I didn't know this a couple weeks ago. He did suffer a death in the family that apparently affected him a lot in the last couple of weeks. And that may have affected his weight cutting, but you could tell mentally he was not fully there to fight. And Blair Cobb, he took advantage of that very, very early. First round, lands a good left hand, and then lands an overhand right rocks Hooker, causes the first knockdown. And then gets 2 knockdowns in the second round. And then you think at that point he might be done. But then slowly as the fight went on, he got a little bit more loose. He started landing those inside shots that he's known for. But he didn't stay consistent with it. He didn't stay consistent with the jab. When there were firefights, he did get into a firefight. But you could tell at those points he didn't really have it enough mentally to affect Blair. And it showed, unfortunately, in the last third of the fight when it started to look like he mentally checked out. He probably thought, I'm already down on the cards. We got into constant headbutts with Blair, and they're not stopping this fight. So I think at that point he mentally probably gave up, even though when he was landing shots against Blair Cobb, he was landing them. Like they were telling him all the time, like his chin is out. You can land combinations, throw the jab. But he mentally probably was not there. And unfortunately, yeah, this was a loser leaves town type of fight. Unfortunately, Blair coming in with a new trainer, leaving Freddie Roach, and looks to have established a pretty decent game plan. But Hooker, unfortunately, was not there, and it doesn't speak well, unfortunately, to his prospects down the line, because either 147 or 154, because that weight-wise, he could probably fit better, but at the same time, if he's not really mentally there, it doesn't really matter at that point. Then it could be time that he leaves the ring behind, and if he does, he can at least leave with his faculties.
I make the argument, Gail, that maybe it's time for Hooker to have a come to Jesus meeting with himself and reevaluate things. Daniel is giving him throwing an asterisk in his performance because of some personal trauma, death in the family that he had to deal with in the lead up. What side of the scale do you lean on in terms of his performance? And give a few words here about Blair Cobb, because he is the one who had his hand raised in victory. He did what he had to do.
The performance of both these fighters was more about their mindset than their skills. Hooker was very heavy-hearted and very heavy on the scale as a result, and slow in his thinking. He just wasn't in it. His body language at several points during the fight, you got the distinct impression he didn't want to be there, that part of him wanted to say no mas and quit. Thankfully, the instincts of a fighter that are still there kept him going. And maybe the thought that in tribute to a woman who'd been like a second mom figure to him, would not want him to quit, would not want him to give up on her behalf. So he soldiered on, but he just simply wasn't mentally prepared to do battle. On the other side of the coin, we have Blair Cobbs, who we all know is a big, crazy, Ric Flair-inspired WWE personality. He's a lot of fun. If you ever meet him at a fight, he's a good time. That's the guy you want to go spend an evening with in Las Vegas. It is. But he realized after his loss to Alexis Rocha that he had to double down and get serious if he was going to stay in the game. So he did a complete 180 of his mindset preparing for the fight. No crazy ring walk. Even the costume was a bit subdued. And he was just no nonsense in that ring. And that is not what we're used to seeing from him. So good for him. He buckled down. He also has a new trainer It was a good switch. He felt that Freddie Roach's time and attention were just spread through too thin to help him. There was no hard feelings at all. He just felt he needed more focus from a trainer. And he was right. He didn't need a big marquee name. He needed somebody to drill him, lean on him, make him work. Having said all that, he's still Blair Cobbs. He's still a little wild. He lacks polish, but he does have stamina. He does have some pop, and he's not afraid to come forward. And that was the perfect situation for him with a Maurice Hooker, who was the opposite. I felt for Bud Crawford and Brian McIntyre Bomac, they did everything they could in the corner to try to get Hooker's head on straight, to give him a hand, to boost him up. Maybe they were what really kept him in the fight at all. But after those first few rounds, Hooker had dug such a deep hole. It was going to be almost impossible past the middle of the fight, short of a knockout, to win. So he will really need to rethink, was this a one-time episode, or is he needing to move on because his best days are behind him? He would still be a good name gatekeeper fighter should he want to continue for a lot of people in the division. He would still get work. Does he want the work? Remains to be seen. I don't know what he's done with his money or where he stands personally. If he absolutely doesn't have to fight and he decides to retire, I will certainly see no shame in that. Blair Cobbs, though, now has some opportunities, perhaps as a substitute opponent for the winner in the main event.
Absolutely, absolutely. Also on this card, Daniel, you had unified women's champion Marlen Esparza defending her BCBA flyweight titles against a fighter by the name of Eva Guzman. I have to admit that coming into this fight, I didn't give Eva Guzman much credit at all based on her competition. She had defeated no one of note. Most of her wins were against fighters with either with sub 500 records, right? Or even less than 10 fights at all. But to Guzman's credit, she came in there and she gave the champ a really, really good scrap throughout. She won some rounds. It wasn't easy for Esparza. She made Esparza work all night, all fight long. But in the end, Esparza got the win by significant wide margin. Even the scorecards were wider than the action. The scorecards were kind of deceptive. If you didn't watch the fight, you would have think that Esparza just blew her away. But in watching the fight, Guzman was right there for large chunks of the contest. It was just that Esparza was able to do a little bit more in each round. Now that she won, the question becomes, Daniel, what is next? With Senicia Estrada, who we talked about on the last episode, deciding to move on from Golden Boy, signing a deal with Top Rank, does that mean that a possible rematch between Esparza and Estrada is just out the window? If that's the case, is the role for Esparza more than likely trying to seek a unification bout, another unification bout to win all the belts at 112 pounds?
That looks to be the direction that Golden Boys is going to move in at. Because of the way Marlen fought today. Now, first, I do have to give a shout out to Guzman. She really, really came in and brought the fight that she could to Marlen. She landed inside. She moved fairly well. Unfortunately, there was too many good, clean shots that Marlen landed that wasn't able to really secure the victory that you could, even with the scorecards being what they were. But it does show good things. One, Marlen is starting to get a little bit better when it comes to feinting, when it comes to dodging counters, because some of the shots that she avoided before, she didn't avoid against Inicia. So it looks like Marlen is progressing a little bit, and that's pretty good because, like I said, Golden Boy is making a call to Argentina to try to get one of those belts of flyweight, because depending on what Sinicia is going to start doing, because I'm pretty sure Bob already has at least one fight coming up for her. Any rematch between Marlen and Sinicia is probably out the door for this year. If there's going to be a rematch, it'll probably be in 2023, because luckily we're at the point in period where Bob and Oscar can break bread without it being begrudgingly. So I don't see that as a potential hiccup in trying to make the fight. It's just mainly timing. But Marlen did good in this fight, but Guzman really showed out. I do agree with the commentary bit in the zone where 112 is probably not the best weight for her. Guzman's small enough where she could probably make 108, maybe even 105, and probably do fairly well. Unless she faces Sinicia. But I think Sinicia will probably end that ambition pretty quick. But she can be very, very serviceable. She proved that she can fight fairly well, and maybe move down the line to 108 is probably going to be her best shot. But it was a pretty good fight overall. But we have to see how soon Golden Boy can get to get these unifications out of the way before another mandatory comes up for Marlen.
While in Estrada Esparza second fight doesn't seem to be on the horizon, it looks like it's not going to happen in the immediacy. It didn't stop Estrada for going on Twitter and commenting on Esparza's fight. You can check that tweet out over on 3kingsboxing.com. Please check out 3kingsboxing.com, your source of pure unadulterated boxing information. Shout out to the entire crew over at 3KB, the man behind 3 Kings, 2K, aka Prodigy of Boxing Talk, head of media relations, Bo, who you've heard here on the show numerous times, fellow senior writers, Bakari, Jarrell, aka Big Cool, Red, who does all the editing behind the scenes. Estrada was like tweeted that if that was me in there, I would have took her out. You know what Top Rank should do in terms of Esparza's debut. You know who should they put her in against? Guzman. To me, if it was me, if I'm Bob Arum, I'm like, okay, you saw Guzman good to counter herself against Esparza. If I'm Arum, I'm like, okay, Esparza's next time her debut, whenever it is, say September, October, November, whenever they finalize the deal, they should put her in there with her. Even though they're not going to fight each other, put a comparison opponent in there, a common opponent. If Estrada knocks her out, it even serves her better. If she struggles, it'll give that much create even more buzz for a rematch between Estrada and Esparza. Quick thoughts on that?
You know, she certainly deserves the opportunity. If she wants it, I say full steam ahead. And where you hear the hesitation in my voice is this is a woman who's not even 5 feet tall, right? Now, Sinicia does fight, fairly well, at a variety of weights, and she does very well in the lower divisions, kind of the lower portions of flyweight. But boy, there is a bit of a height difference. Not that that's ever stopped any, matchups between men who are either shorter or taller. I'm thinking of both Isaac Dogbe and Sebastian Fedora, at sort of opposite ends. She has certainly earned it if she wants it. I could see where she might take a look and think, ugh. And I have a feeling I know where your mind is headed, Michael, if it's headed the same place as mine. In comparison to Esparza, Estrada would wipe the floor with Guzman because she's, for her size, for her weight division, and for being a woman forced to fight 2-minute rounds, that woman can crack some serious power. So I think there might be some reluctance, but a good payday for her, comparatively speaking. Interesting to think about.
It is. It is. We'll see. We'll see what happens with Esparza. I tend to agree with Daniel that it looks like all roads lead to another unification bout at 112. But just putting that option out there, if I'm team Senicia, if I'm team Super Bad, it's just something to think about if you're contemplating an opponent, a debut opponent for Senicia Estrada for top rank in the next coming months. I'm going back to you, Gail, to talk about this last fight. We're heading over to Northern Ireland. We talked about it last week. We previewed this fight last week. The return of Michael Conlan. Last time we had saw him he was getting carried out the ring against Lee Wood, ahead on the scorecards. In that fight, at the time of the stoppage, Lee Wood cracked Conlan with a right hand and concussed him, basically knocked him out on his feet. Subsequent punches knocked him out of the ring. Fortunately, Conlan was fine, was released from the hospital the next day, made his return this past weekend fighting Miguel Mariaga. Knocked him down 3 times, Gil, en route to a win. But I'm looking at this fight and I still have questions. The reason for being because there were moments where Mariaga was able to get to Conlan with some shots and seemed to get his attention with a couple of punches here and there. So while Conlan got the win, I still have questions. I have growing concerns in terms of his chin, his punch resistance. Do you share those? Do you share that assessment, or are you just thinking, was he just trying to knock the cobwebs out? It's a poor analogy, but still trying to shake the ghost, the demons of what happened to him in his fight with Lee Wood.
Oh yeah, again, a fight that was entirely happening in the mind, very much like the Blair Cobbs and Maurice Hooker fight at opposite ends of the spectrum, and to an extent, Vergil Ortiz. Your head's got to be right for the right reasons, focused on the right things. It's a lot to think about in the ring, and then you've got to execute physically and connect the dots between what's firing up in your head nerve-wise and what muscle memory you have in training. Pretty hard for Conlan not to be thinking of the last thing that happened to him in the ring, which was that he flew out of the ring. Not a good outcome. This was a good opponent choice for him, somebody who would, in theory, offensively test him, who had faced a lot of world-class fighters with some success and not success, but knew how to handle himself. But what a lot of the boxing world was asking, me included, is where the hell was Mariaga for most of that fight? Now, he might have touched him a few times, Conlan, but he was so passive and so inactive. At times, he just didn't seem to really have any ideas. Perplexed, perhaps, or, there were some very deer in the headlights moments. And a lot of people discussing this at the time were asking, what's going wrong? We've never seen this before. Actually, we have seen this before. I was ringside when Mariaga faced Vasily Lomachenko, and Lomachenko toyed with him like a cat on a mouse, run rings around him. Mariaga was virtually rendered at a standstill, and finally, just out of frustration, said, "I'm done." No, it was a no moss moment. And Conlan is nowhere near the skill level or the ring generalship or the force of personality that Vasil and Lomachenko is. But he still at times had Mariaga at a standstill until the last 90 seconds of the fight. First of all, you're saying to yourself, where the hell was this version of Mariaga for the previous 11 rounds? But then you're thinking, oh my God, this is just the ultimate psychological warfare. Michael Conlan had to think as the 12th round was progressing, oh my God, it's happening again. He had to do everything necessary to shut his mind down, cool it off. Yeah, we were all looking at it, thinking the same thing. Could lightning strike twice? It didn't. It was a blowout win for Conlan. He did what he needed to do. But as with a lot of other matchups, you ask yourself, was what we looked at the skill and comeback of Conlan or the failure to appear by Mariaga? And I think there was a lot of the last. I think Mariaga just wasn't quite the challenge. For the fans, that's very disappointing. For Michael Conlan, not a bad thing. He got the win he needed. Hopefully he shook off the ghost and the horrible muscle memory of what happened to him, and he'll be able to move on.
To your point, Gail, shout out to Mitch Pryor in the live YouTube chat.
That. Yeah.
He says he was there for the fight. Says it was mesmerizing. He says, I took my then father-in-law and just talked to him the whole way home about how bad Mariaga looked. Tried to explain to him about Loma. So yeah,
that's a conversation for somebody that's not quite sure what they're looking at. Mariaga could not have looked worse, Mitch. Just it was astonishing, truly. And for anybody who was seeing Lomachenko in person for the first time, the hype felt very, very real, didn't it? A lot of it was absolutely true. I've never seen.
We are talking about Vasil Lomachenko, who tends to do that, or who has done that too. A lot of fighters just leave them just dazed and confused, just mentally just checked out. That's one of his greatest attributes.
One of the nights where that's the night where after the fight he laughed and said, I guess they're going to have to start calling me No Moschenko. And I nearly fell out of my seat laughing. He was right. What a good sense of humor.
Yeah, indeed. Lomachenko, who's a few weeks back announced that he's returning to the sport, as boxing fans know. He's been in his native Ukraine as his country is in the midst of an ongoing war with Russia. He joined his comrades and has decided to get back into boxing. Looks like he's going to make his return at some point this fall against the opponent to be announced. Let's get to some news here. And where do I want to go here? Where do I want to go here? Let's talk about one Tyson Fury and get both of you involved in this. After his stoppage win, over Dillian White. Afterwards, he said he was going to retire. That's it, blah, blah, blah. But let's face it, a lot of boxing fans, hardcore or otherwise, was skeptical at his quote-unquote retirement announcement. Well, that skepticism was confirmed today. As over the last 24 hours, Fury posted a video on IG and Twitter talking up about a trilogy against Derek Chisora. There's been interviews also by his co-promoters, Bob Arum and Frank Warren, talking about a possible fight against the winner of Usyk Joshua rematch. So if Usyk were to win, they're talking about a possible fight as early as December, January. What make you about the quick turnaround, the unretirement, if you will, of Tyson Fury? For anyone who wants to pick up the conversation first, let's just face it, from my perspective, is this a surprise Absolutely not.
Oh, hell no. I will read from my own article in nyfights.com dated April 23rd, the night of his victory over over Dillian White in the UK, which was supposed to be his swan song. And here's what I wrote. Come on, this is Tyson Fury. In November 2016, Manny Pacquiao vowed to boxing media after his win over Jesse Vargas, a news conference I was present for, by the way, that he would retire. He said he promised his family he would do so. And we asked him about it over and over and over, that, yeah, I'm going to retire. But as he repeatedly answered the questions, the strength of his answers started wavering just a little bit. And so we were not surprised to see Pacquiao back. In fact, he fought 5 more times after he vowed he was retiring in 2016 until he finally, in theory, officially retired to run for president of the Philippines. You know what? We didn't buy it from Pacquiao that night in 2016, and not a one of us who've been covering boxing for very long bought it from the Gypsy King either that night. Just not happening. He needed a break, fine. If in his mind he needed to say to himself, I'm retired, no more demands on me, great. That really is no more demands on me for now until I feel like coming back. He, throughout his recent successes in his career, has said over and over again, for his mental health, for his overall well-being and success, he needs to fight. He needs to be training. He needs to be in the gym. He shouldn't be out of the ring a long time between fights because it's not healthy for him. How many times have the three of us all heard him say that? And then he's going to abruptly retire with more lucrative, impressive, opportunities with world-class opponents in front of him. Oh, come on. But if he needed a break and that's the only way he could get it, I'm not mad at it. It doesn't mean I believed what he said back in April, and I will welcome him back. The sport is better with him in it.
What say you, Daniel, of this comeback? And what do you think of this choice of opponent trilogy against Chisora? I know Chisora is coming off of a decent win, but yeah, he's not the fighter that he once was, and this just looks to be easy work and a quick payday for Fury.
It is pretty much what it is. There's no real incentive to think that Chisora poses any danger to Fury. So in that sense, I'm not surprised. There's also the fact that he's going to get bored. Unfortunately, Tyson Fury is one of those people that you cannot leave alone to his own devices because sometimes those devices turn out to be terrible things. And I'm not surprised that this is happening. And I'm not surprised they're doing the usual talk of fighting the winner of Usyk Joshua, even though if it's Usyk, we know damn well he's not going to. He's not going to risk getting outboxed the way he'll probably get outboxed by Usyk. But if it's Joshua, then yeah, that makes all the money. That makes all the money in the UK. That sells out Wembley probably in half an hour. But nobody's really surprised between someone not being let into the country because of his ties to Daniel Kinahan. Not really surprised that it comes to a situation where he has to keep his mind afloat, keep his mind busy. So if it happens, it happens. But if it's against Chisora, we know what it is. Just call it an exhibition bout. Because so far he hasn't been stripped of the WBC heavyweight title. Would this be a defense of that title? Hopefully not.
It's a wait and see in terms of whether this bout will get made. Will it be for a WBC title defense? But to your point and to Gail's point, I think anybody with a brain uh, understands that this quote unquote retirement is short lived. It was going to be short lived, and he was going to get back in there sooner or later. It's just too tempting. He's still in his prime, and there's still a lot of money on the table, especially when it comes to a fight against either Usyk or Joshua. He's not turning that down. He ain't that stupid. Uh, Let me get some comments here. Put the comments back up here from Beautiful Blues. Uh, Says he feels a feel. I don't know what that necessarily means. He says the problem is looking at this from the American perspective. All of us in Britain know that Tyson's a big killer. He also says it on taking Tyson Fury solely on his words. We jokingly we joke differently here, and by by Tyson best mates definitely always promised him a career payday. But yeah, you basically saying what we're saying. When his initial retirement, we didn't necessarily buy it. American fans, British fans, or otherwise, always had the feeling that he was going to come back. It wasn't just if, it was when. On a personal level, I always suspected he's going to fight again before the end of the year. He's probably going to fight before the end of the year or January, February 2023 at the latest. His retirement was taken with a grain of salt. So, it is what it is. This is it's news, but it's really not news because we really didn't take his words seriously. It is what it is with Tyson Fury. No one thought this he was going to stay out the ring that long. Nobody with a brain, at least. Let's move on to talk about give an update here on the negotiations for Spence Crawford. Probably the most anticipated fight for the rest of the year. Dan Rafe, you see about this on Three Kings Boxing. We wrote about it initially, reported by Dan Rayfield, who is reporting that PBC is confident that the fight is going to get made September 12th. Not September, excuse me, November 12th or 19th is a targeted date. And according to Rayfield, they're already trying to form some undercard bouts. One of them possibly having WBA regular 147-pound champion Imianis Staniosis fighting on the undercard of Spence Crawford. What do you make of this latest developments and what Rayfield is reporting in terms of the latest developments on negotiations for Errol Spence and Bud Crawford?
No news to contradict what we've known is going on all along. Talks continue. This is a substantial firewall between the two promoters. They've got to negotiate cash-wise, payout-wise. They've got to be able to make a dollar, pay the fighters, and figure out what platforms are going to share that pay-per-view. And that to me is where the real tug of war is happening. If they had unlimited pots of money, they could spread it around, make everybody happy, and move on. They don't. And it's also at the end of the year. That's when money runs shorter. So that's part of the reason the discussion always favored that it might roll over to the first quarter of next year when budgets are a little more generous. So it's really a no news is good news. But the issue will be forced by the calendar. There will need to be 6 to 8 weeks at least prior to the date of the fight for the proper promotion, training, prep, all the things that need to happen. So if it's going to be in mid-November, the clock is ticking. Eventually you're just going to run out of runway to land the plane, because if this isn't announced, say, shortly after Labor Day, it's going to be next year. There's just no way they can gin up the fight. You've got to find a venue. You start rolling into the holiday season, stuff is booked. If you are going to do this in most of the major cities that are potentially available, you have the NFL, college football, sucks away a lot of the American audience's attention. And this is an American showdown. This is a Midwestern showdown. So you can't compete with that. There is a question about where you can put this fight to sell a lot of tickets. Yeah, it's a hardcore fans must-have fight. It is number one on the wish list. To make the big money, you need the casual fans on board too. You need to sell the matchup, sell the story, draw people in. We both know that neither Bud or Errol relish the whole promotional end of the fight. They do their part. They do their jobs. I personally never had a problem with Bud Crawford, ever. But there are a lot of boxing media who will tell you a different story, how difficult he is to deal with. I don't find that the case. I think he doesn't suffer fools, frankly, is the bigger problem. Errol Spence, he's just a laid-back dude. He just is. He has gotten a little better at demonstrating his personality, and I do think that brush with death in that car crash has opened him up a little more. But it's going to take some work to really pull it off because of all the moving parts. So it might be close, but I am not going to believe it until it is across that finish line. Because a crash can happen 100 yards out.
Do you have the same general attitude, Daniel, in terms of you don't believe until you actually see them in the ring?
Pretty much, because you have to remember, this is Al Heyman saying that he's confident that this fight's going to happen, but at the same time, there are still factors that are outside of Al Heyman's control. I mean, this lawsuit that Bud still has with Top Rank, and that can drag things out very, very long. Which is one of the reasons why I said, I don't see Bud actually fighting this year, because he might be too tied up in that front. But if you don't hear anything blow up, if you don't hear anything about diva behavior or exuberant amounts, you can feel confident that this fight's getting closer. The only major hiccup that can happen is if one of the men that we saw last weekend and another man decide to go to the sanctioning bodies and say, we want our shot. And that is Vergil and that is Boots. Boots has more of a shot because I think his is with the IBF. And we know how the IBF feels about mandatories. So if he forces their hand, then it takes it out of the equation and it'll put Boots in a very, very good position. And with Vergil, he even said in his sports interview, he knows what's happening. He knows the conversations that are there. But if there is a chance that this fight can fall through, at least for this year, why not? Why not go for the gusto this year? And if there's a situation where Bud is still stuck in legal limbo, we know the WBO does do interim titles, so you position yourself where the winner of that fight, hey, I got next. So that's the landscape that you're looking at. But as long as we don't hear anything exorbitant, as long as we don't hear the corners acting crazy, as long as it's just backroom business talk, that's more the better. I just don't expect it this year.
Yeah, I think, Daniel, that Boots would take step-aside money. I do. Those sanctioning bodies want their bigger payout. I think, again, it comes down to how much money is it going to be necessary to make all the moving parts work here. For Vergil, he is willing to face Crawford or Spence for that matter, although that's not going to happen. Now, Crawford's the more versatile because he's a free agent. But it won't hurt him to get another year or two of experience. And while the matchups available to him completely within the Golden Boy universe, are certainly not a Bud Crawford or even a Stanionis, Golden Boy can keep him busy with Blair Cobbs, with Alexis Rocha. I'm sure they'll be able to scare up, another name or two and get him through the next year before the bigger opportunity comes along and he's got a few more rounds under his belt. So I don't think Vergil will be as aggressive about an opportunity. He's made it clear where he stands. Everybody's heard him. He and Bud know where they stand. Bud's camp gets it. He doesn't need to yap anymore. He's smart enough to answer questions and leave it at that. It's Boots that might get a little more aggressive. And maybe it gives him some step aside money if it gets to that. I just don't see that happening as an alternative.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes and keep you updated here on Pound Box Report. I want to give a shout out to everybody to join us in the live YouTube chat. Be it Olaf, be it Beautiful Blues, be it Gorgoruga, and my apologies if I'm pronouncing your profile name incorrectly, and also to Mitch Pryor. And last but certainly not least, the Spit Bucket Podcast. Before we move on to talk about other news and get to preview these fights, I omitted to talk. My apologies. I omitted to talk about a particular fight in our recaps, and I want to personally give some focus on this one particular fight, and that is Dalton Smith. Really, really highly touted prospect on the Matchroom Boxing stable. Highly regarded over there in England and throughout the UK. He headlined a DAZN card over the weekend fighting Sam O'Mason. I covered this for Three Kings Boxing. Smith is a junior welterweight. He stopped O'Mason in 6 to win the British junior welterweight title. He already holds a kind of a lower tier WBA title, international title, and I'll just say here right now, I'm mentioning Smith on purpose because it's the first time I've talked about him here on Pound for Pound Box Report. Keep an eye on this. Keep an eye on him. I liked what I saw from him in the ring a lot. Very patient, very smooth, mature for a guy who's only had 11, 12 fights. He's 25 years old, but they're talking that that he has the potential to win a world title. Hearn is very excited about him, as are others, and I see why based on this performance. All-around fighter, good body shots. He showed a terrific right hand in this bout. He had a radar on O'Mason's face with the right hand all fight long in this. And again, just keep an eye on him. Dalton Smith, rising junior welterweight prospect from England. Let's move on to talk about some more news. And look, last time we saw Nonito Donaire in the ring, he was getting blitzed by Naoya Inoue in their rematch over in Japan in June. But Gail, Donaire came out with an interview over on Probellum, and he's talking about moving down to 115 pounds and has eyes on a fight against Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez and Kazuta Ioka, who's current WBO junior bantamweight champion. I know Donaire got blown out the water. He got mini dog walked, if you will, by Inoue. However, coming into that bout, Donaire was on a roll. He got stopped, but if he's seriously contemplating moving down to 115 pounds, I would welcome it, despite his age. I don't give a damn. He's 40 years old. I still think he can fight. He just fought a next level extraordinary fighter in Inoue, and call me crazy if you want, but if he was to fight Roman Gonzalez, Donaire, I would make Donaire the favorite. I just think he's too big and too strong for the likes of Chocolatito, and he would give Ioka an excellent scrap as well. Your thoughts on Nonito Donaire at age 40, talking about moving back down to 115 pounds?
I read this statement, and all I could hear in my head was, "This man is a beast." Amazing. Just an amazing athlete all around. And Michael, if you're crazy, slide over, give me a seat on the crazy train. I'm right there with you all day, every day. I absolutely get my request for credential and get in there to see a true lock, no questions asked Hall of Famer in action for, one of the last few times we're going to see him in the ring. He's still got plenty to deliver. How in the world can he make 115 at 40? But you're right. I mean, the thought of Donaire versus Chocolatito, that's like a fantasy fight. Which two fighters across history would you like to see, fight each other? I mean, this stuff just doesn't happen. And you're also right. Roman Gonzalez should not fight Nonito Donaire. Nonito would be way too big for him. He absolutely would. Chocolatito's best weight division arguably was at 112. I really think Donaire has performed his best at 118. And at those weights and sizes, that's a pretty big gulf. But Gonzalez is not one to turn down a challenge. That's what makes both of these men so great. They aren't worried about protecting O's. They want to test themselves. That is what they're there for, to see how far can they push their skills. That's what gives them true satisfaction in what they do. That's why they're both headed to the Hall of Fame. None of us give a damn about the records. We want to see greatness perform at least a few more times before they call it a day. I mean, I just got so much joy out of this whole idea and the enthusiasm that Donaire still has for boxing at this age. Man, you need to write a book for the rest of us when you retire about healthy living and attitude. Be a bestseller.
I go to you, Daniel, or thoughts on Donaire in this latest interview, and are Gail and I, are we a bit delusional here for thinking that Donaire should be considered the favorite in a possible match with Chocolatito?
If it's Chocolatito, no, because it's true. Like he'll be too big in that sense against Roman, and unfortunately, we've seen what can happen with Roman against a fighter that is naturally bigger than he is when he fought Rungvisai. And let's not take into account the fact that Donaire will probably have a little bit more power in that left hook than Rungvisai had. So that itself would make him the favorite. So that's not the shocking part. The part that's probably a little leery to me is both the age and then the rest of the division. Because you're picking Roman because of legacy. You know what you're doing, and you know Roman is not going to turn down a challenge, like Gail mentioned. But would I have those same odds against Gallo, who's in his prime? Hell, would I have those odds against Bam, who's not even in his prime? But he's already risen to the occasion. That's what starts to worry me when it comes to Donaire doing this at this age. Because I've seen him, like I said, I've seen him at bantamweight. We know what he can do at bantamweight. This might be, depending on the opponent, a little bit more that he could shoot at this weight. Because the other guys, while they might be smaller, they might be more skilled, they might be faster. And let's say if he tried to get a fight with Bam, a kid with something to prove. So that's the dangerous part for me. But if it's just for Roman, if it's against Chocolatito, yeah, I could definitely see Donaire being the favorite. But what makes the fight interesting to me at that point is, will those extra 3 pounds come into effect once Roman gets the work rate going? Because once Chocolatito's motor goes, it's almost impossible to stop. So if he has that motor going, with Donaire doing the little bit extra work to get those extra 3 pounds, would that be the difference in winning or losing? That's what makes this interesting. But if it's on power alone, size alone, yeah, Donaire's the favorite.
The fact that Donaire's even talking about making this kind of move, he's a damn G. Give him all credit in the world. The competitive fire that he still has post rematch loss to Ioka. You just tip his hat to him, and his zeal, his thirst, the fact that he still wants to challenge himself at this age. Will he make that move? It's a wait and see. It's a wait and see. I would welcome it. I would welcome it. I would love to see him fight Roman. I would love to see him fight Ioka. I would love to even see a fight against Bam. Old man versus the young buck.
Oh my God. That man is old enough to be his father, and that is
right. Old man versus the young buck. I would not be against that. We'll see if this develops. One more bit of news here. Whoever wants to tackle this, it was announced today that the much talked about fight between Benn and Eubank, I should say Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn has been finalized. Set will happen on October 8th. Legacy bout here. Boxing fans, particularly boxing fans of an older ilk, know that these two are the sons of former British greats, Chris Eubank Sr. and Nigel Benn. Both of those two fighters fought twice, 1990 and 1993. Both of them former middleweight and super middleweight champions. Their first fight, Eubank Sr. beat Benn for the middleweight belt, WBO version. Their rematch in 93. October 93, I remember it, watching it as a kid, at the expense of revealing my age here, as a young kid, watching it on what was tape delay at that time on Showtime. Ended in a draw. The two sons are fighting at a catch weight of 156 pounds. Conor Benn, he competes regularly at welterweight. Eubank competes now at middleweight. What do you make of the fact that the sons are following the legacy of their dads and fighting each other? Whoever wants to tackle this, please do.
Yeah, this is right up there with the fantasy fight league idea. This is a fight designed strictly for the UK public. Boxing fans there, they're going nuts over this. Two of their favorite fighters of the past, their progeny coming together in the ring. It's a feeding frenzy. They can't wait. The fact that they've sort of managed to cobble this together to catch weight to force it to work is because there's just so much hype and so much interest in this. And, it is intriguing. Are we going to see a great fight out of it? Kind of not convinced that what happens in the ring will be especially memorable. It certainly, I don't think it will match the father's careers, but it really isn't about that. It is about what's going to happen in the weeks building up to the fight. It will be it will be mayhem leading up to the fight. People are going to choose sides. Neighborhood battles are going to break out. Everybody's going to be watching. It's going to have all the enthusiasm of a really, really hot soccer rivalry, and that's really the best way to look at it. So it is sheer entertainment building on these two names. I'm going to reserve judgment about what kind of athletic contest we're going to see, but by the time we get there, it might not even matter.
I'll go to you, Daniel. Any thoughts of the fact that Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn are facing each other?
I had to be the Debbie Downer here, don't I? Oh my god!
Well, I thought I was pretty close, but go for it.
Who thought this was the right idea? Whose accountant drugged Conor Benn into accepting this? Because, okay, I'm never going to take anything away from their fathers. The rivalry between Chris Eubanks and Nigel Benn was one of the best you'll ever see, particularly in the UK. It's the reason why this has gotten the buzz that it does now, but I forgot. What was the catch rate on this?
156.
Have we ever seen Chris Eubanks smaller than 160? Are you going to push then Conor Benn, who is ranked in the welterweight rankings? Could you push him to the point of no return where his body gets adjusted too much and then now you push them to 154? Where it's even more of a murderous row now. Why? Just what? Yeah, I get the name, but it's not their dad. It's not Chris Eubanks Sr. and Nigel Benn in that ring. It's Chris Eubanks Jr., who unfortunately has been one of the growing list of examples of fighters who unfortunately are still trying to live up to the legacy of their father. And it has not come through. With Eubanks, he's tried. We know what happened with Billy Joe Saunders. He's been trying to call out all types of fighters, and they've ignored him because they don't take him seriously. Conor Benn's been a little bit more of a tough path, a little bit more of a structured path, but it's in a division where he doesn't have to worry about so much of of living up to the legacy of Nigel Benn the way Junior had to do with Senior. That and the fact that Chris Eubanks Senior is a crazy person too. That adds into it. But yes, this is just good. This is just strictly for the UK fan. This is strictly for UK fans to Sabertooth, but it doesn't make any damn sense. You're pushing a man who was last fighting at super middleweight to essentially go down to junior middleweight, and now you're pushing a kid that his body looks right for a welterweight to push it to the point where it may actually get stuck at junior middleweight a little bit too early. It makes no sense, but hey, we've seen crazier things before. We have seen crazier things before, unfortunately. We've avoided a crazy thing when the Jake Paul fight got canceled, but we've seen crazier things. Remember, we were witness to Prograis Red Catch in that Triller card. And I think that won't top the level of buffoonery that we saw in that fight. So that would be fun. And exactly in that comment right there. That would be a fun fight. And granted, that may actually happen because we're still a little bit leery about Vergil safely making 147. And if this fight pushes Conor to fight a junior middleweight, that wouldn't be a bad fight. Although probably I would pick Vergil to win that one.
Yeah, I mean, look, if the fight is happening, it'll be fun for folks over across the pond. Doesn't have much interest, to be honest, here in the United States. And but the issue of size, that is the key. That is the big looming question here. I think to Gail's point in the private chat here, She says that Eubank Jr. has never weighed in less than 159.5, where Benn began his career actually at 140 pounds as a junior welterweight, has progressively naturally moved up to 147. Will Eubank be strong still at 156? Will Benn carry the power from 47 up? Couple comments here in the private in the public chat. Guru said he also wants Ioka's WBO strap too. We mentioned that in terms of our discussion about Donaire wanting a fight with Roman. He mentioned some other stuff. About Klitschko. That's rumors in terms of Vlad Klitschko. We do not know. He's still dealing with the same situation that Lomachenko was over in Ukraine. He's still Klitschko is still with his countrymen over in the Ukraine. That's just rumors right now, so we do not know for sure. Some more comments. I'll just put this back up again. Southern California Boxing Club says Conor Benn versus Vergil Ortiz would be fire. I agree with that. It would be an excellent fight. Google Ruga in the chat also gives some more details. He says an estimated $6 million plus each for Benn and Eubank Jr. So that asks the question. That's the question why. That's the reason why it's getting made, because it's a big money maker. As well, he mentioned that $6 million beats a $1 million that supposedly Demetrius Andrade sent for a possible fight, a possible title defense against Eubank. So yeah, what would you take if you was Chris Eubank Jr.? A $6 million fight offer to fight Conor Benn, or a $1 million fight offer to fight Demetrius Andrade? It's all about, what makes money makes sense, and that certainly makes more sense from a financial perspective. Also, Gail mentioned something here from the aforementioned Dan Rayfield. I'll read her verbatim here in the private chat for everyone listening live or checking this out later. She says, however, a source with direct knowledge of the details told Fight Freaks United that the maximum contract weight would be somewhere between 155 and 159 pounds, making it technically a middleweight bout. The source did not want to divulge the exact weight. The fight, dubbed Born Rivals, will stream live on DAZN around the world, but will be on DAZN a DAZN pay-per-view event in the UK and in Ireland. So thanks for the latest details on that, Gail. Let's move on to preview some fights here before we begin to sign things off. Two fights, quote unquote, to talk about. The main one is the return of former unified lightweight champion Teofimo Lopez. Beat Lomachenko in December, I believe it was, 2020. Excuse me. To win those lightweight titles. We all know the hubbub around him and the effort to eventually make a fight with Kambosos. They fought in November 2020. Kambosos scoring one of the bigger upsets of 2020, defeating Teofimo Lopez by decision, right? And Lopez was injured coming into that bout. We now know he was quite ill. Has exited 135, is fighting at 140 pounds now, making his debut against a fighter by the name of Pedro Campa. I'll go to you on this one, Gail. The thing for me is not whether Teofimo Lopez could be successful from a physical standpoint at 140. He was a pretty good sized lightweight. His body was basically telling him that it was time to move up to 140, but he resisted that urge to stay around at 135, and it kind of cost him. Teofimo has speed, he has size, he has power, right? My question is about his maturity. His immaturity showed in the period between the Lomachenko win and the Kambosos loss, right? His public feud with Bob Arum. him jumping the gun to try to make to make the bout on Triller. Triller overpricing themselves with that $6 million offer. How Teofimo acted in the lead up to the fight with Kambosos, and even his comments afterwards, claiming that he won when nobody with boxing sense knows that Teofimo Lopez lost that fight. He acted like a self-entitled, spoiled brat in that roughly nearly 11, 12-month period between that Lomachenko win and the Kambosos loss. Nobody liked it. He became a villain as a result. Has he, for lack of better words, grown up from that loss, and will it play itself out in the fight against Campa coming up?
He has to. But if you take him at his word, no. A fighter who loses, who does not candidly assess what happened and take those lessons and improve from it, doesn't grow at all, doesn't benefit, doesn't get better. You've got to first acknowledge the reality of what happened and figure out, how do I fix this? What did I learn from it? Was it something I did, something I failed to do? Did I not train properly? What is it? Lopez is in 100% complete denial. Almost as bad as Adrian Broner thinking he beat Manny Pacquiao and proclaiming it to a crowd who rained booze down on him so loud they crushed him. Lopez is in trouble. If he really thinks this, if he really thinks, Mitch, that he won 11-2, and I think he does, he's in trouble. His head is not right, and he's getting no help from anyone around him. Unfortunately, he seems to be stuck with his father. They're sort of off in their little denial zone together. He would benefit from somebody taking him under his wing, speaking some hard truths to him, and telling them that he's got to rearrange his thinking to maximize the talents that he does have, the skills that he does have. But he's hit some kind of a wall. I mean, he is smacked straight into it. He's had problems within his family. It seems like his personal relationship with his wife is completely imploded. I think that his father is the only one sort of sticking by his side, and that seems like a very dysfunctional symbiotic relationship.
But his father acts like a little punk too, given how he acts. He's Angel Garcia-like, except worse.
Yeah, they really are two of a kind, and it's a lot of relationships that both parties are mutually involved in by their choice. We all know them among people that we know in our own lives, and they're toxic. They're just bad deals. This is one of them. So is Lopez going to squander his future over this? Is he going to get back in the ring and wiggle past some of these tune-up opponents? Yeah, he will. He probably will. Once he gets back to the upper echelon fighters, the true talent of the division, the guys that not only have the physical skills, but also the work ethic and the right mindset. They learn from their mistakes. They build on them so that they don't make them again. They improve. They are honest with themselves about themselves. Now, I get it if they don't want to be entirely honest with those of us out here in the observer and fan community, but they have got to be honest with themselves, or they're standing on a foundation that is very, very shaky. If I was investing, in boxing futures on the market, I'd be throwing all my money behind guys like Bam Rodriguez and not a dime behind someone like Teofimo Lopez. But will I be watching with both eyes wide open to see what kind of Lopez we now have in 2022? You bet I will.
I'll go to you, Daniel. I make the comparison, uh, Teofimo Lopez and his dad, to the Haneys, right? You got Devin Haney, who's undisputed lightweight champion, right? Coming off of the win against Cambosis, to collect all the belts now. There's stability between Bill Haney and Devin. Bill understands that, yes, he loves his son. He's going to be there in his corner for him every time, but he understands how to take a step back and let the son be his own person. And he doesn't act like a fool, like a buffoon outside the ring. The maturity and the composure that you see from the Haneys, right? You do not see from the Lopez father and son. And compare them directly because they've had their back and forth beefs and arguments on social media and in person. But despite their trash talking, you see the difference in how the Haneys carry themselves versus the Lopez family carry themselves. When it came to Lopez, it resulted in the son losing. And I still have questions. Do you share similar concerns for Teofimo heading into this fight against Campa? Or
Yeah,
Campa, excuse me, Campa.
in ways, yes, because the main difference between the Haney family and this is mainly that the senior Haney is allowing Devin to be a man, to make his own decisions, to think things through. He'll back him up when he needs to, but he's willing to let his son be a man, both in and out of the ring. Lopez's dad, unfortunately, feels like he just wants to be his friend.
And he wants to be in the spotlight.
Mm-hmm. And one of the problems, unfortunately, is and if you're a parent or if you have siblings that have kids, if you're an uncle, if you're very close to somebody, you know firsthand that it's very, very tough and almost always a mistake to try to be a friend constantly to your kids. Because at the end of the day, they're going to want to look at you for guidance as a parent. They're going to want to see, even when they're adults, they're going to want to see what you were doing around that time, what you were thinking when they were that age, to see if they avoid the mistakes you made or if you have advice for things that you made. That's unfortunately looks to be missing completely for the dynamic in the Lopez family. Well, I understand why you made that comparison, Mike. I would add a different comparison because this might be the relationship that Teofimo needs to start thinking of doing because if his father is the way he is. Look at the relationship between Danny Garcia and Angel Garcia. We know Angel, he talks a lot of crap. The foot is always in his mouth at some point. But Danny has, even though he's indulged in some of his dad's buffoonery, he has grown to a point where he can step away and even tell his dad from time to time, you're doing too much. You're affecting me. You're affecting me putting food on the table. That should be the relationship Teofimo strives for. You cannot have a situation right now where you can try to be your friend, especially when you're coming off that type of loss that you had against Cambosis. Just the entire Cambosis situation from beginning to end was a spiral that, unfortunately, Teofimo doesn't look like he's completely out of. Will a victory in this fight push that out of the way temporarily? Yes, it will. But that's always going to be there until he fixes that. Until somebody, either a top rank or somebody outside the consultant, can actually sit down with Teofimo and talk to him man to man and tell him the mistakes he's making, and also tell his dad the mistakes he's making, and somehow be a buffer between the two, you're going to have these concerns. And unfortunately, that is taken away from a fighter that, 3 years ago, we were looking at his future was bright. His future could still be bright, but he just has to get out of this fog first.
I'm not throwing him out the wayside, Teofimo. The potential is still there. Remember, I said physically, I don't think he would have any problems at the new weight. But again, it's his mentality. It's his mentality. If his head is there, if he's fully focused and concentrated, I think he can do damage. I think he can possibly win it. He can win a world title, because we saw the talent in against Lomachenko, right? He boxed right. He was right there boxing wise with a master boxer. But then you turn around in his next fight and everything he just fell apart. Will we see more Teofimo more in lines of how he looked against Lomachenko, or will we see more of what we saw in his most recent outing against Cambosis? That is the question heading into this fight, which take place on Saturday, the 13th on ESPN, and that fight is going to be held in Las Vegas. The night before, Daniel and Gail, and whoever wants to talk about this, I'm leaving it up to y'all. We have former junior lightweight champion, right? Tevin Farmer fighting former 135-pound champ, Mickey Bay. They're going to fight in Arizona. My question to both of you is why? Who asked for this fight? Who wants this fight? I know they were supposed to fight in the Middle East, but nobody wanted to see it then. Who wants to see it now? I don't.
Tell us how you really feel, Mike.
Well, I think you speak for a lot of people.
I mean, the interest, my interest level is on a scale of 1 to 10, -2.
It's not a 1 just out of sheer curiosity.
No.
Just train wreck appeal.
No. I mean, look, I write for 3 Kings. I write for 3 Kings, and we're going to cover it because we have to. It's an assignment. But don't expect any of us to be very enthused about it. I'm just saying.
I think that people will be perusing Tim Boxeo's club fight list instead of Friday night. You would much rather watch a card in a club setting.
Put it this way. A lot of us, the 3 of us included, are in an exclusive meeting of boxing writers that take place on Friday nights. I'm more interested in watching a 8-round live bout on the low in the black market from Korea
every
Thailand
day, all day,
than I am in this fight between Tevin Farmer and Mickey Bay.
Let me tell you what, those Asian club fights are damn good entertainment. And if you are not taking those in, you are missing out. Yeah, this is just, I want to save my time I put in camp.
See, Miguel's dogs are barking.
Yeah, my dog's like, that's trash.
They're not amused.
Get away from the door. Now I'm not watching that stuff. Listen, these guys, want to get another few rounds in the ring. They don't want to waste a training camp. This is sort of nobody's going to make big money. It's an expenses covering, making good on their time kind of fight. I imagine they've got some fans who are going to watch. I don't think any of us know who they are. I am incredibly disappointed in what's happened to Tevin Farmer. He had so much promise. He was just this stealth assassin for quite a few years, and man, he is just falling apart. I imagine this is an attempt to salvage his career and see what he's got left, but it's a damn bad attempt.
Any interest, Daniel, at all?
This could be this is going to be a little bit of the boxing cocaine that I may need, unfortunately. Now, let me explain why, because this is the main reason why this fight is kind of intriguing to me, because they're both in similar tracks in their careers. Like none of them are expected like for this fight to catapult them to a world title right now, unfortunately. But both of these guys at one point were touted very heavily. When it comes to Tevin Farmer, yeah, quiet assassin. One of the people that Floyd made sure that Tank Davis would never face to protect Tank until he lost to Jojo Diaz. And that loss, unfortunately, has affected it. Took a lot of luster away from him. And he's been trying to rebuild ever since. And Mickey Bay is probably the first major. It's either him or J. Leon Love that are the first major prospects that you felt were getting the push flowing for Mayweather. And we might be talking very differently, or we're talking similarly, probably a little bit differently, about Mickey Bay if he was able just to survive John Molina for one more round. But he didn't, and that changed his career forever. And ultimately, this is where they're at. This is a crossroads fight for them. One guy was a champion, and unfortunately has fallen a little bit off it, and then the other guy could have been. Unfortunately, when it comes to the scenario, that's what makes it interesting. Outside of that, yeah, there really isn't much to salivate over. I agree with Gail in the sense of the fact that they probably didn't want to waste a training camp, and they're just trying to make good on the time they put in. But it is an interesting fight in that aspect. But yeah, we know damn well more than likely we're going to be in a 10-box sales circuit. We're going to be waiting for either Korean fight, or who knows, we're going to be watching some club fights in Tijuana. Considering that may be more interesting than what's going to happen here. But at least, to me, I find that more of a curiosity to it. Not enough for me to actually go out of my way to purchase it, but it's at least interesting to me in that front.
I guess Daniel shares kind of the quadruple amount of optimism, enthusiasm, excitement that I am, because again, I have none. Capital N, capital O, capital N, capital E, with every exclamation mark until infinity in terms of this bout. I mean, it's happening. Best of luck to them in the ring, but as far as it goes with me, and I think we're going to end the show on that note. If you like what you heard this evening live or at a later date, please make sure to hit that like button. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button. It'll help the overall algorithms in terms of the show. It gets close to being monetized. I want to thank everybody who joined us in the live chat. Mitch Pryor or Gorgoruga, Southern California Boxing Club, Olaf, Beautiful Blues, as well as the Spit Bucket Podcast. I'll go around to the rest of the panel here. Begin the show with ladies first, end the show with ladies first. Gail from NY Fights and Communities Digital News, for those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk media, because you do teach media, or for those who want to occasionally check you out on TMZ Live, let the folks know where they can find you.
Pardon me, the growling you hear under my chair is two dogs are just sort of pissed off at Farmer versus Bay, making their feelings known. Like they think it's a dog meat. dog meat fight. Thank you all for listening. And boy, is it my imagination or is the quality of the comments gone way, way up the last few weeks?
Yeah, a lot more
Hey, we got
people
some
comment.
impressive input.
A lot more comments. A lot more folks in
A
the
lot more
live chat,
smart listeners.
which I'm very appreciative of.
Yeah,
Thanks for
got some.
joining us on a weekly basis, and I hope more joins us in the future episodes.
Yeah, we're suddenly getting some smart listeners. Where the hell do y'all come from? Wherever it was, we're very, very, very glad to have you. Seriously. You can read my regular column and my fight coverage at nyfights.com. I am actually based out of Southern California, so I'm the West Coast office of nyfights.com. We are worldwide, despite the name. In fact, my latest piece is a preview of next weekend's fight card here in San Diego, headlined by Emmanuel Navarrete, and a very interesting connection between prospect and, I'm sure you've never heard this before, grandson of Muhammad Ali, Nico Ali Wash, I think that first part is now his official first name, is going to be fighting in the same arena where his grandfather's jaw was broken by Ken Norton. This is kind of an intriguing little bit of connection. They were in town to preview the fight. You'll find my work there, and you can find me on the Twitter, combing Tim Boxeo's feed for those club fights. I am PR Pro San Diego.
I'll go to you, Daniel. Last but certainly not least, for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk pro wrestling, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat, let the folks know where they can check you out.
Yes, you can find folks at Twitter, Rux99, RAWKUZ99. Catch me on there. So obviously, like I said, hopefully we're going to get into some good last half of the year when it comes to boxing in. If a certain GM in Brooklyn is listening, Bam is off the table, Jimmy's off the table, Hero's off the table. You will take Duncan Robinson and picks and love it.
You're talking about, I'm assuming you're talking about a possible deal for one Kevin Durant.
Yep, and because the owner decided I'm gonna stick with Sean Marks and Steve Nash over Kevin Durant, which by the way kneecaps any leverage Sean Marks has to train it for Kevin Durant. So like I said, Bam's off the table, Jimmy's off the table, Tyler's off the table. You will take Duncan Robinson and picks and you will like it.
Daniel's not having it, not one iota. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness with me, and be on the lookout, Daniel. I'm going to share some music with you after the show. Just check your email either in the next hour or so. Boxing, music, fitness, you know what it is with me on Twitter. Brother JRSC on IG, boxing, music, health and wellness, and fragrances. Please check me out on IG, but Brother JR, Brother JRSC on IG, Brother JR76 on Twitter. On the next episode, we will do a recap. I guess we got a recap for Former and Bay there. Also, we will do a recap of the return of Teofimo. He's fighting Pedro Campa on the undercard of that, a fighter a prospect who we've talked about an awful lot here on Pound for Pound Boxing Report, Xander Zayas. He's going to fight in a 8-round junior middleweight bouts. Also, former 2020 Olympic medalist Duke Reagan. He's fighting on that same card as well. We may touch on his next fight. He's fighting a guy by the name of Fuentes. We will recap those fights. We will also preview all the boxing that's happening on August 20th. Boxing is picking back up, ladies and gentlemen. The rematch between Anthony Joshua, the rematch between Alexander Usyk and Anthony Joshua on the undercard of that. Philip Hrgovic is going to be fighting Zhilei Zhang in an IBF heavyweight eliminator. Callum Smith is also fighting on that undercard in a WBC light heavyweight eliminator. Baldu Jack is also fighting on that card in, say it's a light heavyweight bout. Is he going back to 175? Also on the same that same date, you have the return of Emmanuel Navarrete defending his WBO featherweight title against a guy by the name of Eduardo Baez. Adrian Broner is going to fight on that same date as well on August 20th, fighting Omar Figueroa Jr. Roger Gutierrez is defending his WBA belt at 130 pounds, fighting Hector Garcia. Alberto Puello is going to fight for the vacant WBA 140-pound strap. So a lot of boxing. Heavy, fully loaded schedule that's happening on August the 20th. So check us out on the next episode. We will discuss all of those bouts. Again, I want to thank everybody who joined us in the live chat. Really appreciate your comments and your questions. Keep them coming, and hope to have more of you join us on future episodes. For Gail from nyfights.com and Community Digital News, Daniel from the Inscriber, I want to give a shout out to other previous guests of Pound for Pound Boxing Report, be it Gus, aka Corruption in Boxing, be it Bo, Truth and Facts, Head of Media Relations for Three Kings Boxing, be it Jacob. I hope all is well with each of you gentlemen. Ladies Love Boxing Show, look for September, either the week of Shields, Marshall, Baumgartner, Michaela Mayer, either the week of or the week afterwards. I'm thinking more the week following. The week following the ladies card is taking place in the O2 Arena. That way, we can recap those bouts and preview Canelo Triple G3 at the same time. I'll keep you updated on when that next edition of the Ladies Love Boxing episode of Pound for Pound Boxing Report is coming, but it's going to be in September, in and around that time of the week of the 10th or the week of the 17th. I'll keep you informed. So yeah, thank everybody who joined us again in the live chat again. This has been episode 373 of Pound for Pound Boxing Report. For Gail, from Daniel, I am your host, Michael. We'll see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening, good night, and rest in power, Olivia Newton-John.